In a world where progress never sleeps, one company stands out as the driving force behind infrastructure and energy solutions. Introducing our fuel company and cement producer, where excellence meets efficiency. Jar Oil. The company have 30 filling stations across the country that are all operating, which includes the recently completed Yarambamba and Old Yundum filling stations. And our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. Along the years, Jar Oil introduces importation and distribution of cement in their line of business to diversify and strengthen their operations. Are you a cement retailer? At the moment, Jar Oil is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market. With a focus on sustainability and innovation, we are paving the way for a greener, stronger future. Trust in us to fuel your projects and lay the groundwork for success. We currently produce over 25,200,000 bags per year. As the largest cement producer in the country, Jar Oil also targets to export cement to the neighboring countries like Guinea-Bissau, Guinea-Conakry, and others. Join us on our journey to shape a world where every drop of fuel and every bag of cement makes a difference. Together, we can build a brighter tomorrow.
We started a conversation here last week, Wednesday to be precise, with Mr. Larry Sise, a day after Alhaji Usainu Dabo, the Secretary General and leader of the United Democratic Party, gave a press conference. We could not continue, and that's why Larry is back here. He has a full hour to go through the press conference. I think, Larry, good morning and welcome back. Good to have you here.
Good morning, Peter. Good to be back again.
Fantastic. I think you had 7 talking points,
yes,
and we didn't have time to go through it all. You can start from the very top if you want. Today, I believe I have enough time for you. You have until 10 a.m.
Good. That's good. That's good to hear.
But as you sat out there, waiting to be invited into the studio, you had the ping pong on the Diaspora vote issue, yes.
Yes. I don't know. I sometimes I cannot wrap my head around some lines of thinking. For a lot of us, the 2020 Constitution, no matter what you call it, is the people's constitution. And we say it's the people's constitution because $116 million of our money, the people's money, was spent to prepare that constitution.
True.
It went through a rigorous national debate in every single hamlet of this country. And that discussion also included the diasporan voters. So now to say it becomes the people's constitution only when it is promulgated in a referendum begs the question, come on, when we say people's constitution, the frame for our argument is 116 million spent. Gambians, in the largest majority possible, participated in formulating that constitution. The 2024 constitution is Barrow and Jallo's constitution. And we call it Barrow and Jallo's constitution very rightly because they're the ones, and I don't know who, maybe the cabinet, and now they are saying they brought in a South African lawyer to do this. This is not the people's constitution. And I worry a lot about this country, Peter, because when people see these things, even some of our political parties who are speaking now for us to endorse the 2024 Constitution, were silent on the 2020 Constitution. They didn't advocate for it as strongly as they are advocating for this one.
When it was thrown out of
When
Parliament.
it was thrown out of Parliament. Some of our development partners, and I don't normally lightly say these things. I'm disappointed in my own UN institution, the UNDP, for supporting and financing this 2024 draft and paying for billboards that say, please approve our constitution. UNDP knows better than that. This is the UN agency that is the custodian of democratization and governance within the UN system. Free, fair, transparent elections, poverty reduction, climate change, and other issues. These are the issues that UNDP is known for. UNDP is not known for supporting rogue constitutions. And I say this with a very heavy heart.
So to you, the 2024 draft is a rogue constitution?
It is a rogue constitution because Gambians have not participated in its formulation. Now, they're going to deflect, attack, and all of that, but the bottom line is we call it the 2020 Constitution, the People's Constitution, because the people actually participated in its writing, in its crystallization, and all the ideas that went into it. Now, nobody is saying a constitution can be perfect from word go, but you can adopt a good constitution which represents your values. The 2024 constitution does not represent Gambia's values. It does not represent democratic governance values, where you have a situation where the president and his cabinet can declare their assets when they come into power, but will not declare their assets when they leave power. Come on, no country, no serious country in the 21st century will have a constitution like that. Mm-hmm. Secondly, the issue of succession. If that 2024 constitution is passed, mm-hmm. Barrow can appoint anybody to succeed him. And that brings into question his saying, one of his statements in Soma, that I will leave, my children will leave. Now that has been shifted to, by my children, I mean my party. But hey, let us not play with words. If there is no clear succession framework, when he leaves or he decides to leave, he can pick you, Peter, or me, Larry.
He won't pick me, maybe
to
you.
To succeed him, not even me. So, but my point is he can pick anybody and make you president without an election. And when he does that, you complete his term. Contrast that to the 2020 Constitution, where he becomes incapacitated or leaves, the VP takes over and in 90 days conducts an election. That is what the democratic principle calls for. The 2024 Constitution, I read it again, and my party leader made reference to the changes that have been made to the 2020 Constitution in the 2024. They made 20 different changes.
Oh, wow.
20 different changes from the 2020 Constitution, and you cannot see those changes in the 2024 Constitution. One of the biggest changes, and it's just one, is the complete expunging of Chapter 5 of the 2020 Constitution. So essentially what they are pushing on us...
Chapter 5 deals with what?
It deals with the governance structures, the leadership, the integrity, ethics issues that public officials must be held accountable on. They took it out completely. And that is just one of the 2020 changes. Now, after reading it over and over again, I have concluded that 2024 Constitution, Gambians should be aware. It is intended to create an imperial presidency, not an executive president, an imperial presidency. Wow. And that is a very serious matter.
What's the difference between an executive president and an imperial president?
You create an emperor on paper and you legalize it. That's what an imperial presidency means. An executive president is what we have in the 1997 Constitution, and it was a bit watered down in the 2020 Constitution. Now, these guys want to create an emperor, and I think Gambians ought to know that.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to the Chapter 5 that they expunge from the 2020, I always say, when they appoint you in a public position, they appoint you because they trusted you to be diligent in carrying out your functions. What we are seeing is anything but. So I tend to say, in our governance structures, the biggest, saddest element of our governance structure is the abuse of, is corruption as a tool for making yourself rich. And I say corruption is the greatest betrayal of the public trust. When we trust you, we give you a position. There is a reason why we do that. If you betray that, you betray all of us. So I always say corruption is the saddest, greatest betrayal of the public trust, because the public trusts you, essentially. And you promise to do certain things. If you don't fulfill those things, then you betray that trust. And I will end with the Constitution on that one. And I will say, with the recent voting down of
that clause in the election bill
on the diaspora voting. Like as I said the last time, it saddens me that a huge portion of our population that lives abroad are contributing, according to the government's own measure, more than $700 million a year on remittances. I am part of that group that does that remittance. And it saddens me that we can sit very comfortably and give arguments that logistically it won't be possible for them to vote. Come on, let us be serious. As I said, Guinea-Bissau has done it. And no English-speaking country has done it. It's not an excuse for the Gambia not to do it. I beg to differ. I think it's not allowing diasporans to vote is again another betrayal of Gambians. They should be allowed to vote. And you know what, those diasporans who can afford it will come back, they will register, and they will vote. The thing that you thought you were fighting against will eventually work against you by this decision. Finally, those who are saying UDP was the problem in defeating this clause in the Constitution, come on, guys. This is a party whose members of parliament voted for that clause. The NPP is a party, all of whose members voted against that clause. So who is to blame for this clause not passing? Who? When you look at it's on social media, those who have voted for it and those who have voted against it. NPP is the party that voted against it, and the onus is on them to take that responsibility. I would have thought if they had engineered their members of parliament to vote against that particular clause, they will come up with a plausible explanation. What the Attorney General explained doesn't stand. What they are saying in terms of the logistics of it doesn't stand. If you want these people to vote, you will make it possible for them to vote. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right.
In a world where progress never sleeps, one company stands out as the driving force behind infrastructure and energy solutions. Introducing our fuel company and cement producer, where excellence meets efficiency. Jar Oil. The company have 30 filling stations across the country that are all operating, which includes the recently completed Yarambamba and Old Yundum filling stations. And our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. Along the years, Jar Oil introduces importation and distribution of cement in their line of business to diversify and strengthen their operations. Are you a cement retailer? At the moment, Jar Oil is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market. With a focus on sustainability and innovation, we are paving the way for a greener, stronger future. Trust in us to fuel your projects and lay the groundwork for success. We currently produce over 25,200,000 bags per year. As the largest cement producer in the country, Jaha Oil also target to export cement to the neighboring countries like Guinea-Bissau, Guinea-Conakry, and others. Join us on our journey to shape a world where every drop of fuel and every bag of cement makes a difference. Together, we can build a brighter tomorrow.
Well, in introducing the program this morning, I teased the audience with a question: has the Barrow government acted unaccountably by contracting a loan it hasn't declared? One of my guests today thinks it has. I was referencing you, of course. Let's start there. And then, we go into, you reckon there's a $2 billion loan contracted by government that Gambians have no idea about.
At least they have not come out publicly to state that that $2 billion has been contracted. It was contracted on December 2nd. Maybe 1 week before the finance minister went to present the budget. I thought if you sign a $2 billion loan on my behalf, when you present a budget to Parliament, at least, even if it is in passing, you need to let us know that this has been contracted and why has it been contracted and what it will be used for. It is just one of those things. I call it shadow loans. And if you look at what is happening in Senegal, all these revelations that are coming out because of audit reports, a vast amount of those resources are conducted under the rubric of shadow budgeting. Now, if you contract a loan on behalf of all of us, and we'll be paying for it, our sons and daughters and our grandchildren will be paying for this.
Great-grandchildren even.
Yeah, you owe it to us to tell us what you are doing.
Yeah. Because if this is a loan, for instance, that has a grace period of 40 years, you won't be here.
No,
I won't be here.
It's our children and
exactly.
their children who are going to be straddled with this thing. Yeah. The other thing about these shadow loans is that it tends to report the budget deficit. You don't tell us our budget deficit is about $2 billion, and then you go and sign another loan that is $2 billion, and you don't report that in the public domain. So there is a lot of nuances there, and because of their lack of transparency, they leave us with no option but to just look at these things from different sources of information and come to the public domain with it. Contrary to what they think, some of us have access to these kinds of information because we know where the information is. It's just a question of having the time to go and harvest that information and bring it into the public domain.
I'm surprised you can even nail it down to the day when, the contract was signed.
December 2nd.
Wow.
2024. So the information is out there. The question is, how do you harness it and analyze it and then come into the public domain? So make no mistake, we know these things. And while we are on this thing, when you look at the pattern of recycling, they call it recycling our
assets?
Strategic. I call them strategic national assets, quoting my party leader.
Okay.
When you look at the pattern of recycling and mortgaging these national assets, you see
one of which is the Banjul Port.
And
which has caused a lot of pushback from the minister.
The bridge, the Civil Aviation Authority, ferry services, and now the Port Authority. Now, when the party leader made mention of the Port Authority contract, honestly, the focus was, because we sat and discussed this as a team, the focus was on 80% for the Turkish company and 20% for the Gambia government. And then the question becomes, is this contract in our best national interest? And of course, if you give a foreign entity 80% share in a business deal, 20% goes to your country, anybody can stand up and say, no, this is not in the national interest, because the numbers just don't balance out. That was the point he was making. Now, for the ministry to issue a page and a half, 2 pages of press release to harp on the idea that he is inferring that we sold it off. I mean, what happened to colloquialism in language? It's a colloquial. The bigger point is 80%. And you notice the press release has not answered that 80-20 spread of benefits between the Turkish company and the Gambia government. Now, my colleague and friend Lamin Mane responded to them quite succinctly in social media. It's been playing around since yesterday, and I think everybody read it. When you look at all of the issues that were raised in that write-up, you see the rot that is at the Ministry of Infrastructure.
Rot?
The rot.
Wow.
Well, I challenge anybody to read Lamin's thing, because like I say, we sat down and looked at all these figures, and you realize that in every infrastructure project, there is an issue there that you can question, is this in the national interest? When you build a road like Bata Harding,
they now call it IOC highway.
Bata Harding. When you build a road like
you refuse to call it IOC.
No, because it has a history. And we need to respect...
Not IOC, by the way, OIC.
Yes,
OIC.
It has a history, and we need to recognize that history. If they want to change it, that's fine. For some of us are old-timers, we call it Bata Harding, because there is a reason why it was named after that individual. Now, when you take a stretch of road like that, and you are told we built it, 22 kilometers of road, we built it at a cost of $6.3 million per kilometer. When you know by international standards, a road that quality cannot go beyond 1.2 million. Is that in our national interest? When you build the subsidiary roads around it, and those roads are just a year or two old, and now when you look at them, you feel they've been built some 20 years ago because of shoddy construction work. Is that in our national interest? I thought when you build infrastructure, you are building it for the long haul, minimum 25 years. Here you build a road, and in 2 or 3 years, it is gone. So the issue of, do they have supervisory engineers to look at the
quality of the road.
Quality of the road comes into question. Now, I have a new revelation to make.
Breaking news, roll the drums. Bang.
It is not breaking news.
Okay.
It is news that the ministry released day before yesterday. Sometimes I wonder why they release these things on the weekend. They release it because nobody is paying attention. And what is this? The press release from the Ministry of Petroleum through the Ministry of Information about our deep sea mining
opportunities, yes.
They call it deep sea mining opportunities. You know what, Peter?
What?
First of all, we need to address our oil. Where is the oil?
Well, Jame had it on a compact disc.
Yes.
On a CD.
And he waved it famously.
Yes.
Where is the oil? I am passionate about this because when the oil was first discovered in 1980-81, during the Jawara regime.
That long ago?
That long ago. I was a young civil servant working with Dr. Walindau at the National Seals Secretariat.
Wow.
It was discovered then, and Cabinet took a decision not to exploit because the international oil market was in a glut. And they decided not to prospect for that oil until at a future date when the Gulf states' oil reserves dwindle. Now, time has taken that way. Then comes Jame. He has it on his famous flash.
Yeah.
And
it was a compact disc,
yes,
CD.
Yes, and the reports are out there that there is oil. Now, what you have to focus on, Gambians, is to say, how can Mauritania have oil Senegal has oil and gas, Mauritania oil and gas. That fault line skips the Gambia, and Guinea-Bissau has oil and gas.
Oh, wow.
We are all on the same fault line. If they have it, we have it.
We have it, yes.
And it is the same fault line that goes through Gabon, Nigeria, all the way down on the South Atlantic. Now, this particular case, I am interested in this thing because I think this government hasn't been too open to us about that oil issue. Now you hear the president say he wants to make this an oil hub. But then where is the oil?
It means there is oil.
It means there is oil. But where is it? What have they signed with Far Oil of Australia? This is what I am researching, and I tell you, I have my hands on information.
You do?
I do.
Ah.
When I'm ready with it, I will come public with it. They need to come out and tell us where that oil and gas are.
Coffee Time listeners, watch this space.
Now, about this deep sea mining, you know what they are after?
No.
It's called polymetallic nodule. Polymetallic nodule. It's like a nodule. Mm-hmm. It has minerals like iron, cobalt, titanium, and all of that.
Oh, wow.
Under the seabed. Now, to say a Norwegian company and a Gambian company are prospecting for potential discoveries begs the question, who are the Norwegian, which Norwegian company are we talking about? Have they signed a contract with this Norwegian company? Who are the Gambian owners of the Gambian side of the contract? Now, if you go by the history of our mining industry on the South Atlantic coast, there are only one or two individuals who are active in that mining. And my biggest worry about this activity is not so much that these minerals are there. We know they are there because there are reports out there that have clearly identified swaths of these minerals in our exclusive economic zone. My issue is these are called in situ natural resources. In situ meaning situated somewhere.
Yes.
Now, if there is a Gambian component of that, shouldn't this government make it public what is in their interest in terms of exploring this thing? Because you know what, that press release, as far as I'm concerned, was done to preempt the rumors that are going in town that a certain Norwegian entity came in and engaged certain ministers on this offshore drilling. It's a preemptive strike on their part. But again, they're going to deny, they will deflect, they will demonize, and end up insulting me. But the facts will come out. From day one, when I started coming on this program on behalf of UDP, we have spoken about the trend that this government is mortgaging our strategic national asset. I think I even mentioned the entities that are going to be privatized, and they've all been privatized.
There's one more coming.
Yes.
The Friendship Hotel.
The Friendship Hotel, even Gamtel, it's going to be Gamcel are on the block. So I'm saying, what is going on in the minds of our leaders when they mortgage of all of these national assets that they have not built? These were built by some other government that for all of us that they are mortgaging. So I would like to know who this Norwegian company is, but more importantly, who are the Gambian counterparts? What is in it for the Gambia? As I said, it's an in situ natural resource, and it's our heritage, our collective heritage. And if they are going to explore it, my concern is, given the history of how they've behaved in the South Atlantic, Combo South area on mining, they just mine, they don't reclaim, and move on, causing enormous environmental damage. Now, imagine if they mine in our exclusive economic zone that way. the kind of environmental damage it is going to cause in our seabed and its effects on our coral reefs and the fisheries industry.
Yeah. And I must say, this deep sea mining is one of the issues at the center of the tussle between GPA, Ministry of Works and Infrastructure, Al Bayrak, and the Village Development Committee in Sanyang.
Yes.
Because they highlighted that issue
Yes.
that they were worried that what Al Bayrak are after is not a deep sea port, but prospecting for minerals offshore
and land. Because if you decide
they also raised the issue of
if you decide to
real estate development,
yes. There is a trend here, Peter, and it's a very sad trend because the future of our kids, as you were saying, and their kids are being mortgaged today.
Well, in respect of loans, when I spoke. Don't worry, we'll get a response to all this, hopefully in short order, because we're trying to get the Minister of Finance on tomorrow's program, and he should be able to, maybe give some answers, well, if not to the state asset mortgaging thing, definitely on this $2 billion Dalasi loan.